the more that you anchor in to high harmonics, the more you anchor in the codes of your soul, the more you anchor in your blueprint, the more you hold sturdy in what that is, and you will speak when all resistance is coming at you, regardless, the stronger the resistance energy pursues you. And I'm sorry to say that.
That's
I
true.
I wish it wasn't the case,
Hmm.
but this is also why we have to learn how to fortify.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another show. So, today, let's talk about healing those ancestral bloodlines, all those wounds. And for that, Ashtyn Monea is with us today. So, let me tell you a little bit about her. So, Ashtyn brings a powerful blend of multi-dimensional awareness and grounded practicality to help the individuals reconnect with their true essence and embody their highest potential. Specializing in masculine and feminine integration, Ashtyn has a unique and beautiful ability to alchemize that shadow into soul, leading to that deep transformation. So, Ashtyn, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm well. You look so beautiful. I'm really excited to be here with you. And like, what a juicy topic that can be supportive to so many people.
Right. So, first of all, thank you. My hair looked great today. But it's that thing. It's the whole, and you and I met previously, and I remember talking to you about I agree with the masculine and the feminine, the alchemizing it and the energy of it, but you really do bring a different twist to it. You really do bring a higher vibration to it. So talk to us a little bit, before we even get into our topic today, of what it is that you do and how is it that you started even doing all of this?
Woo! That's a loaded
I
question.
know. But it makes
uh,
sense because your story is the reason we're here. I mean, that's the
Absolutely.
level you bring it.
Yeah. So if we start it back at the beginning, which does connect with our topic today, I came into a highly dysfunctional family system. And most of the people that I end up working with are also high alchemists and therefore born into highly dysfunctional family systems. It's like we're the ones that are like, okay, it's really been thickening up like all of this collective debris and ancestral debris. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the work and I'm going to clear it out. I'm going to zero it out and we're going to shift into a new paradigm. So I definitely came into quite a bit of dysfunction, alcoholic, narcissistic father, an empathic but disempowered victim mentality mom who would dissociate regularly, so go into catatonic states. My brother is adopted, and I became his mother immediately. My parents weren't really ready to be parents. We're only 9 months apart. We were in the same grade, but I definitely took the mothering position and was a parentified child, if you haven't already caught that in there.
Mhm.
And with that, my brother, about adolescent age, started, it could have been perceived as schizophrenia, but really it went into like a sociopathic, very violent and dangerous place. So I had a lot of dysfunction swirling around me, and simultaneously, I came in advanced. I have so many lifetimes on earth to back me, plus many lifetimes off of earth. And I hold a lot of that remembrance now, coming in as a child and not having a family or anyone in it that could truly reflect to me my own essence. It kind of kept it hidden. Like it was like you can touch it, you can feel it, but there's
Mhm.
nothing outside of you to validate or confirm what it is that you are or what you see or what you know, the wisdom that you hold. As a child, I was saying, like speaking wisdom and truth, and it brought grown men to tears. So there were things that were happening,
Right.
but again, I didn't have someone being like, "Oh, you have this is what's going on and this is what's going on." So I kind of started out with the dysfunctional family system. I was highly grounded, really rooted. I was here to do that healing work in my ancestry. And that meant that when there were people around me, including the members of my nuclear family, that would gaslight me in exact moments where an occurrence happened, something traumatic happened. Now you want to go and you want to retell the story. I was like, no, this is what happened. And I could feel myself like pulling energy to ground and rooting really deep and being like, we are going to hold this in place because this is a part of this larger collective issue that we see is okay, I'm going to suppress, I'm going to repress, I'm going to project, I'm going to deflect, I'm going to change the story, contort the narrative so that we don't have to be grounded in reality, which means we're not being with what is. And when we are collectively moving like this, I call it the suppression realms. It just grows and it grows and it grows and it grows and it's unattended to. And so I knew, no, this is very important. I need to hold this. I didn't know why when I was a kid doing this,
Mhm.
but now I understand why, because so many years later in my late 20s, where I've had a massive activation in response to, I call it a cosmic connection. We had a lot of prior lifetimes together, and we certainly had a soul contract, and coming into contact with one another, it just opened us both up. Like my extrasensory perceptions were coming online, some that I had in childhood and then I could make sense of now in my early
Mhm.
adult years, but other ones that I hadn't experienced in this lifetime yet. And so there was this massive activation that happened, and then this starts bringing us into relationship that's highly alchemizing. And what does that mean for something like bloodline work? Because
Right.
those two things are going to go
Right.
together.
Right.
And when I talk about bloodline work, and we're talking about like our ancestry, I try to remind that we have many lineages. We don't just have the biological lineage. We are also connected to potentially like the feminine collective or the masculine collective. We have multi-dimensional lineages, lineages
Mhm.
connected to our soul. We have multi-dimensional lineages from other species and dimensions, places that we have been. So in our DNA, for example, we might have Palladian or Arcturian, these other kind of species inside of our DNA, and we're working certain things out here on earth relative to that as well. So there's so much that if we look at it as ancestral work or bloodline work, is actually connected to so much more.
Right.
So, as I was navigating through this experience when I was younger, it was more about psychology. Like, I had this ability, I still have this ability to travel subconscious, unconscious material. I can see some memories that they have. I can see roots of the issues. As I was going through this process myself without my more intuitive context that I have now, I was experiencing memory of my ancestry that was not mine. And I could not make sense of it until later on. And I'm realizing this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like we have things that are in our DNA that we inherit, whether you are consciously aware of it or not. It is there. And so,
Mhm.
for those of us who are high alchemists, we're going to be working with that content in a more conscious way. We're going to be able to sense it, feel it, know it, maybe even remember it, right? And we're going to need to work it out through our all of our bodies, including our physical body somatically.
Right.
So I started more in psychology because that's what made sense when no one was reflecting my intuition. I got my undergrad in psychology. I then went on to get a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, which I left in the final hour. I had like 2 more semesters, and life had started to already orchestrate around me to do the work that I do now. At the time, I was calling it transformational coaching work. And what I noticed is in my observing other counselors, like you have to observe in your residency,
Mm-hmm.
wait a second, my work is going deeper. My work is more expansive. My
Mm-hmm.
work is cleaner. It's not based in an old paradigm. It doesn't have codependency written into it, which psychology and counseling does. And I can do more. And I knew that if I went the counseling route, I wasn't going to be able to support the people I'm here to support. I work with magical, mystical humans that are on the leading edge of evolution. There's a gap there. Those are people that can't go to a counselor to actually have them meet them in the depth that they actually are. You know, some
Right.
of it would even say, call it psychosis. Oh, you hear things, you see things.
Right.
And
And that's the thing.
yeah,
Even we experience it and we're like, am I going crazy? Or it even if. So yeah, sorry for the interruption, but it's
no,
true.
go.
It's definitely true. And again, that's why I wanted you to share your story because there's so many parts to it. And it's that. And that's why I stopped you there also. It's that precise difference that I find in you
Mm,
that yes, there's a lot of healers, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people talking the talk. There's not a lot of people walking the talk. And there's definitely not a lot. There is some, and I'm grateful for people like you. There are some people that other high alchemists can actually go to and be like, okay, I'm usually the one, because that happens to me. People come to me for things, people come to me for help. And when I'm telling you, it could be the lady at the store. Like, even one time, I was buying like these nutrition pills. And all of a sudden, the lady just starts talking to me over the counter, and she told me like this whole thing. And I felt how everything transformed. She just needed to get it off her system. But then at the end, she looked at me. She goes, "I don't know what it is about you. I'm so sorry. I have no idea. I just got so compelled." And I was like, "Yeah, that's okay. You know, whatever." But when we need to do that, it's like, who can I talk to that will understand and help me take that next level and not be at the same level or lower? And I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's, if I'm vibing here and I'm kind of stuck here, I need somebody that's a little bit higher or at the same, because I don't need somebody to bring me to vibe lower. And to me, I think that's what happens. I'm not saying psychology and all of that isn't good. It's good and it does its purpose, but it's not for everybody. And especially when we're talking about all these different things. So I love that. Okay, now I do have a question for you.
yeah, go for it.
So I wrote down when you said, yeah, I'm gonna come down and do the work when we were up there. We don't know how hard it was gonna be when we were human.
No.
So how do we go from this life is hard and I freaking chose it to be that way to, okay, I'm doing the work and things are better and I'm aligned and it's flowing? Because being human to being high vibe is not the same thing.
Mhm.
So how do you go about that? Or how did you go about that? Or what do you recommend?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many different streams that are coming in right now. So let me just pick one. The first thing is that it is true that we don't know how difficult it's going to be. And even when we have arrived to Earth and we've done it many times, that still remains true. Part of this is what I refer to in my teachings as resistance energy. We are not accounting for the energy that is persisting against the high alchemy. And there it's very intense. So this is also a part of me working with the leading edge. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to be with you deeply inside of whatever it is. And so there are fears that we have about really embodying our power, embodying our unobstructed expression, really speaking our truth, being here fully for what we are here for. And there's parts of us that understand the more that you anchor in to high harmonics, the more you anchor in the codes of your soul, the more you anchor in your blueprint, the more you hold sturdy in what that is, and you will speak when all resistance is coming at you, regardless,
Mhm.
the stronger the resistance energy pursues you. And I'm sorry to say that.
That's
I
true.
I wish it wasn't the case,
Mhm.
but this is also why we have to learn how to fortify while we navigate through. And so it gets down to like the root. Why am I here? Because when it gets really tough, you could totally back out. So when I'm working through this with clients, I'm like, hey, but you do it anyways. Hey, but you do it anyways. Where is your devotion at? My devotion gets me through everything. And what that is a commitment to truth. It is a commitment to what is whole and right and what ultimately restores not only our personal systems, but this entire planet. I'm here to restore this planet. And so, with that, I am going to be truth in the room, even when I'm standing in a room with 1,000 people that can't receive it. I'm still going to be it. Because part of that is to fortify and solidify. And then those codes of your soul, the blueprint that you have up here in ether, it goes, oh, this is the spot. And it starts landing through your body and into the ground and into Gaia. I'm here for Gaia. I'm not here to entertain the distortions of humanity. I will speak to it. I will show you case you the patterns over and over again, but I'm not here to entertain that. I'm here to be truth in the room no matter what. So where is that? Like living inside of us when we arrive and we're here to do the work, that lives inside of you. It's something that you, in a way, can't let go of. And when you let go of it, you can feel your own fragmentation happening. You can feel a distancing happening from your very essence. And for me, that's not worth it. To be anchored fully in my essence and say I have every right to exist here in high alchemy is far more fruitful to me and the life around me than to cower at the power. There is some power in it, it's false power, but the power of resistance.
Mhm.
I don't know if that answered your question, but that's where it wanted to go.
No, that's fine. And it's perfect because I love that you said that. And it was kind of going to bring me back and I guess it's kind of the same thing. The other question I was going to ask you before, I think kind of led to that. When you said you were younger, I need to hold on to this. I was going to ask you, was that you grounding that belief and that power? And that's exactly what you just talked about, which I love. It's no matter what's happening around you, the other 999 people in that room, you're still anchoring and grounding that power. And number one, I think that is so relevant and so important because I'll use my life as an example. Even before we started recording, I told you this weekend, I just kind of went through a whole, what the hell is going on? Right. And one of the things that I noticed, and as you were talking, I'm like, yeah, that's literally why. And that's literally the same thing. What I wrote down this weekend was it's not that I lost my way, but I became too human. I was into my humanness, is what I call it. I was way too much into my human, and I haven't been as grounded no matter what happens. I have allowed that no matter what happens, happens quite literally. And what happens, and the way I explain it to clients, is kind of like, yes, you can be flowing and you could be like a leaf on a river that's flowing. But there's one thing to go with the flow and know you're on the right thing and go with the flow. There's another thing to have been dropped on the thing. You don't have any control over it. You're just like blah. And you're going down a waterfall and you're doing nothing about it. Like there's a difference. And that's what I noticed this weekend. And I think that's what happens to a lot of whatever we want to call it, high alchemists, light workers, just people in general, because I think we don't even have to be doing this work. We forget we're such powerful spiritual beings. And it's like we have all these things, and yet we let our humanness, the problems, the bills, the life, the groceries, the whatever, be more important than what we know we are inside, and especially what we know we came to do. And I think that's what you bring about, that you're more of a, I'm here and I got you, and I'm going to remind you because that's what I'm doing for myself and for Gaia. So I think that's super interesting and super like on point for that.
Mm,
Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you is when you said the fears of embodying our power.
mm.
let's bring that in with what we are supposedly talking about today, which is healing the bloodlines. Because you mentioned at the beginning, it's not just healing the bloodlines that we think of our DNA as in parents, grandparents, blah, 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 which is amazing in itself. But it is healing those bloodlines of the Pleiadians and the Arcturians. And but what happens when we don't know? That is what's showing up in us. And that's why I'm mixing it in with this question, because that kind of is that fear of embodying our power. We have so much power, and yet we fear it, number one. And number two, it's okay, I can maybe heal great grandma's whatever, but how do I have the power and how do I heal this thing that happens to be some Arcturian, let's say, thing from a different, like, how do we go about that?
Hmm. This is where the material that is here on Earth, like if we're looking at it dimensionally, right? There's dimensions that are based in sound and light, and they don't have the material. And so this is also what makes Earth a high alchemy planet, highly integrative. There's a lot of contrast here. You can learn from contrast. Contrast can also really hurt, really, really bad. It's like the full thing. This is why master souls come to Earth. So this is the place where we get to leverage the material for the multidimensional. Because when we are looking at this through a multidimensional lens, and we're looking at this then through a multitude of different species that are galactic, Syrian, Arcturian, Palladian, Andromedan, Metonkin, I mispronounce that sometimes, but a variety, right? Like we're
Mm-hmm.
just taking all of that. Now, we have been through a lot of falls. There's a lot of falls that then have collapsed into Earth. And what that does is it magnetizes, it draws in all of these species to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have that in our DNA, but we're also on a planet where there's a lot of disconnection and amnesia. So we're not directly always remembering. Now, when you do your healing work and you're really going deep, those memories do start to come back in, but you got to get there, right? And there's so many
Mm-hmm.
layers to get there. So this is where you could be here in this human life going through, let's just say it's a love relationship dynamic. And behind the scenes, little do you know that you're doing work between the reptilians and the Pleiadians. And
Right.
that's what's happening right now. Now, you don't necessarily have to know that in order to create
Mm-hmm.
the impact, because what is down here, material is densified. That's why it's
Mm-hmm.
high alchemy, because it's so condensed and highly concentrated. So you can be making that impact. However, if you come into this place of being able to see behind the veil and also to remember, you can do that work even more consciously. There are things that I have navigated through in this life, and I'm always leveraging the ground level for what's actually happening. A lot of times, the other person is not aware of what's happening. Sometimes they are, but I let that inform me in the decision making process, my choices. How am I going to work this? Because basically, we're like taking something in that DNA, we're unraveling it, and then we're putting it back together in the
Mm-hmm.
truer form. So, this again is where I will say something. I'm known for like writing these encoded letters. Like at the end of a relationship, I'm like, "Duh, duh, duh," because I'm actually doing the unweaving, and in the letter, I'm putting it back together.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things that I'm saying we can do behind the scenes that are directly related to things that seem way out here, but really they're right here.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that, for example, like with ancestral healing, we don't need to know. Like a lot of the people are like, let's bring it down to earth so people could like, because yes, the Pleiadians and all of those, And I see what you mean. It's more of a whatever we do here is still gonna affect because that's the purpose of it. So we don't consciously need to know, was that reptilian or was that Pleiadian or was that whatever. But then in our human mind, our ancestral lineage, we don't usually need to know, was that grandma's? Or was that, my mother's grandma? Or we just have to deal with what's happening. And that's usually what I tell clients. It's kind of like, you just need to deal with you. It sounds selfish, but what's showing up in and through you is exactly what either needs to come out, be manifested, or be healed. So, in that sense, now we're going to bump it up again. To do that blood healing and that ancestral healing is not just great for all of us, but especially for the ones that came to do the work in masses. So I know you and I talked before about my complaint, laughingly, that why is it that we come to do and heal the bloodline of our freaking family? It's like, I'll do my work, but why do I have to do the work of so many of these people? But then a lot of the healers and a lot of the people that actually come to do that work has a hard time. And it's like, damn it, I already thought that ancestor was healed or that thing was healed. And it's like over and over again. Can you talk to us about that? Because it's kind of like that feeling of it's not healed once and it's done. Go ahead.
It's layers.
I know.
It's layers. I think that the womb is such a great example here, and I'm going to connect us with ancestral healing that also connects to collective healing. So it all makes
Okay.
sense. But the womb, why I'm bringing it in is because it holds all memory, it holds all time, space, everything. And so when we're talking about ancestral healing, whoo, the womb holds a lot. The heart also holds a lot. There are other things, but the womb more than anything holds memory. So when I'm working with high level women, we end up arriving into these spaces of feminine initiation that also oftentimes connect into ancestral healing
Mm-hmm.
because that memory is there. And when we're looking at this through a systemic lens, so we're looking at something ancestrally, and I said, oh, yeah, when we have a love relationship, that ancestral stuff is definitely going to show up. We're also able to see ancestrally the dysfunction of the collective. It's all
Right.
connected. So we're really not just doing, right, the ancestral, we're doing the collective work, and it's everything is mirroring back and forth. So when women are doing this kind of work, they can come into this space of feminine initiation where they're like, oh my gosh, this is like an endless well. I don't know where it bottoms out. I can feel so much to include inside of my womb. It's very uncomfortable. There's a lot of grief. I can't make sense of all of it. We're not meant to make sense. Our mind can't process what our body can
Right.
process and our feeling body can process. And so, you go into these spaces and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, here is this particular pocket of this particular pattern as it relates to the dysfunction of my family. And then it's like, okay, it moved. It came out of the body. This is amazing. Oh, I have more space. I can breathe. Okay, now maybe there's a next stage and a next stage. And then even all the way down here, you're like, wait a second. All the way back here, this is coming up again. Because again, it's all connected. And for us to get down into the root, we have to go expansive and then we have to contract and we have to go right back to those starting points. I
Okay.
say that this isn't regressing. Like, are you really regressing in the sense that you're stagnant? Or are you regressing to progress? Because that's different. And so this is a part of
Okay.
that spiraling that we do, right? Which is why
Mm-hmm.
we come back. But you're spiraling, you're coming back from it here. Whereas when you started, you were here. And so there is a difference. And this is also kind of where it can become difficult because the deeper you go, that doesn't make it easier. Depth is deeper. It can be
Right.
even more intense sometimes to get closer to that root. And that can be really painful for us. It's like, well, why? Why am I doing this? Just get deeper. And then it's like more and more. And it seems endless. And at the same time, one incredibly powerful person that is really doing the work all the way to embodiment. So it's not up in the ether, but it's like really here. The ripple effects of that are tremendous. And that's a part of where we need to recognize our actual power and what that means in its impact. We are the ones that came in to do the work for how many generations? How many people does that actually include just in our ancestry alone? Why? Why are we the ones? Well, because our capacity has the ability to do that. Not everyone's capacity can do that. And so when you're going into these depths, you're also in training relative to your own capacity. And as your capacity grows, this is also where you start to realize, wait a second, I am actually doing healing work for this entire collective. Oh, wait a second, I started doing healing work for the entire planet. Oh, wait a second, I'm doing it for the entire galaxy. Oh my gosh, I'm going back into the omniverse now. That's the level that I work at, all of those levels. And so, why again? Why do we show up? Because those ripple effects matter. And it comes from a place of love, right? Like a place of love and care where we're like, I want to leave this living legacy. I want for children to come into this world with higher vibrational frequencies that aren't just shot off this planet because the dissonance, the distortion, and the resistance is too much for them to anchor here on Earth. I want to see a new paradigm become, and maybe that happens in this lifetime and maybe it doesn't, but I know that what I'm here for matters and the ripple effects are big, even from one
Mm-hmm.
powerful individual.
Mm-hmm. That actually spun me to a different thought. Um, the way I've seen it and I explain it is Earth is a school. Because of its density, it's that we come to learn so much. But now that you just said that, I'm thinking, yes, we all want to change it to a different paradigm. That's a little bit easier. That's a little bit soft. But my question now is, and this is an actual, true, honest to God question, if we come here to experience the density and the difficulty so that we can find our power and find our lesson and find our growth, then if we're doing all this work for the collective, are we not taking that away from others to do that for themselves? Does that make
Mm.
sense?
There's different stages. So we
Okay.
have to look at it as a spectrum of consciousness. So I say I am here to support the leading edge of the leading edge. I lead the leading edge. I know this about
Mhm.
myself. I'm able to take claim of that because I don't fear my power. And I know that expressing that is the truest thing that I can do and will draw in the people that are meant for the work that I'm here to
Mhm.
do. So there's this spectrum of consciousness, and I'm gonna put in a kind of grid working example here.
Mhm.
So you can be someone who's doing really high level grid work. And this is like, it just feels like this is my purpose. This is what I'm here for. You're going on a lot of pilgrimages and missions, and you're doing land work. And there's all of these different things that are arriving in your life. And then all of a sudden, there's a shift. And now there's this new opening, this new space. And I've been here before and I could feel, oh, right, I'm not responsible for that anymore. The next wave needs to step in because they now have the capacity to do the work at that level. That now
Mhm.
frees me up to go here.
Okay.
So this is not about, it's not through a codependence lens where we're the
Mhm.
saviors and we're going to do all the work and then life is going to be so amazing and everyone's going to benefit from it. No, every single person here has their work and they have the things that they are going to need to do. But they might be here And the lessons that you have learned, the wisdom that you have embodied, they haven't accessed yet. And so they're here and their capacity isn't at the place of doing high alchemy bloodline healing.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense because when you said that, I was like, and it's exactly what I was feeling because I'm like, if we're all going step by step, it's what I know now. And it's also, and I wrote it down, it's also that spiral. When you're talking about like peeling the onion, well, that's the way I call it, like peeling the onion and peeling the layers. There has come a point several times that I'm like, am I seriously dealing with this again? But when I do come into it and when I do work with it, I can tell and I can feel I am looking at it from a different level.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, fine. I didn't notice A, B, and C before the way I'm noticing it now. And
Mhm.
I can work at it at a deeper level. So when you just said that about, okay, getting to that whole bigger area, and then that's why it threw me off. But okay, awesome.
Can I
And then
also
the,
add something in
yeah.
relative to what you had asked too? We really do have to unravel codependency. You can't do ancestral healing and not do the work of unraveling codependency. Like that's not possible. And so oftentimes when we're like young light workers, it's imprinted in our body. And so this is a
Mhm.
part of where we're like, oh my gosh, I'm coming online. I can see so much. Okay, I have to go save my mom. I got to save my dad. I
Mhm.
got to save my brothers, sisters, my cousin, my grandmothers. I got to save all my friends. I got to let them all know, right?
Mhm.
It's like,
Yep.
that's messy. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way.
Yep.
Now you're overriding other people's sovereignty, and that is also not reflectant of a higher level of maturity, embodiment, and also healing, like clean healing. So when we're doing the bloodline work relative to what you were talking about of like accessing these different layers and like, well, when comes the point when someone else comes in and does this work? I call this untethering. So there are things, for example, when I was saying I was really rooted and I was like, oh, we have to remember exactly what
Mhm.
happened, right? There's been a process of me untethering from holding that at ground. I'm like, oh no, I'm not responsible for that anymore. Okay, you have to let go when it's the time to let go. And sometimes healer types, it's like we'll get to the root and then we'll start digging underneath the root, like trying to find something else and something else and something else. And we're not like allowing ourselves the levity. This is density to levity to let go, to step into something new, for something to open up, for even our blueprint to land, which may have much more levity built into it than where we just came from. So, an
Mhm.
example here is I had a conversation with my father. Last year, I visited family 4 times. It was every quarter I had to go back, and I was being called into doing more ancestral work just by being near my family. And so, in those iterations, there were boundaries that I set in place and was like, no, like, I'm not even giving you a hug when I leave. You need to understand that we cannot move forward without addressing the past. And you are responsible for the part that you're responsible for. I will not bypass it because I have done work, right? This is a relational unit and it requires both of us here. And then there's times where I've come back after and there's more space. And I sat him down and had a conversation about, you need to understand, I am not a child, I am woman. And if you were to speak to my mom or any woman in my presence in this particular way, it will not be okay. I will not sit there. I will not be quiet. You need to understand that these are my boundaries, and this is how things operate in shared space with me. We have these conversations, continues on to the last of these 4 visits. And I sat him down to say, I need for you to know I am no longer holding you on earth. And he understood what I was saying. I said, if you are going
Mhm.
to choose to live and not die, it's going to be because you are choosing it, because I'm not anchoring your energy to earth anymore.
Mhm.
And he knew the consequences of that. He knew that I
Mhm.
had been holding him there. He knew that there are health things that absolutely could show up immediately because I wasn't doing that anymore. And so this is the untethering process that I'm talking about. Yes, I've done all this ancestral healing work, but there are these times where something else is calling us in and we're meant to let go because someone else needs to step in. And at that point, that is their choosing, right? That's where you honor someone's sovereignty. If he's like, I'm not stepping in and he died, I'm like, okay, that was his choice. That's not
Mm-hmm.
on me, that was his. But I'm not going to hold him there because I don't believe he can do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So how does a person know when they need to let go? Because again, let's talk about the humanness part of us. Our brain gets involved. And what you just said before, the young light workers. I love when you said that because I laughed and I could totally see when I used to do that. It's like you get all this information, you want to help the world because it's like, oh my God, da, 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 da. And there comes a point, because it happens to me. It comes a point that you realize, yeah, I'm shush, like shush. But then when you are doing something like that, how do you realize, especially for your own blueprint, how do you realize when it's time to stop doing something?
You got to feel it in your body. It
Okay.
comes from your deeper knowing. So if
Okay.
we're disconnected from ourselves and our deeper knowing, and we are in a place where we're allowing the external to guide us rather than our internal to guide us, we'll miss it. You'll
Hmm.
miss that the opening is there. I can
Hmm.
feel those shifts inside of my body. I could be sitting on the couch and be like, whoo, whoo, okay, this is what's happening now. Ah, I need to then make this choice. And so
Okay.
this is a part of becoming attuned. Like
Mm.
we've been taught not to listen to ourselves. We've been taught to listen to what's outside of ourselves. We've been taught to listen to the mind, which has a whole lot of ideas. And ideas are different than wisdom, and ideas are different than knowing, which is deeply connected to your body. So,
Mhm.
really, these shifts are sensations in your body that become openings that connect to your knowing. And you're like, oh, there's this shift that's happening. So when we are someone, for example, that's intuitive and we can feel collective shifts, it's a very similar thing that I'm talking about, except that this is personal to us. And sometimes when it's like really, really personal to us, we have our attachments, and that's where we
Mhm.
have to be really honest with
Mhm.
ourselves about those attachments and what it is that we want from ourselves. Are we going to allow life to lead us? Because there's a shift that just presented. Are we going to decline it? Are we not going to be so deeply attuned inside of ourselves that we actually miss it? Right. So, like, you do have to do work to get yourself to the place of sensing those knowings and also honoring those knowings.
Yeah. Okay. That makes total sense. And I know we're running out of time, but that's why I wanted to like kind of close up with that, because I think that's like the whole thing. It's knowing yourself, knowing your power, knowing that you're in this constant spiral, um, and kind of choosing your knowing versus what your mind's telling you. Because I think, like you said, there's so much going on, and our mind has a lot of ideas. But there's such a difference when you just have this knowing. And I love that you said that, because I'm like, okay, she's right. Like I was getting in my head, quite literally. I was getting in my head as in, what do I have to let go of that I still haven't done? Maybe I haven't done my next jump. And when you said it's annoying, I'm like, okay, I can relate to that. Um, but it's choosing to be in our power. And I think that's probably it, because let's take it a little on the fantasy movie world. Everybody sees all these movies about like these witches that have powers and they have these things and they just awaken. And I love all those movies. But for me, it's like, yeah, I wish it would have just been like that. Like it's a constant little here, a little there, a little here, a little here, way back here, then go back here. But it's trusting yourself that you're still capable of so much more, right? Okay.
100%. Yeah. I
Beautiful.
say
Anything?
I say that uh, baby steps lead to quantum leaps, and it's devotion in every moment. That's why if you go back, it's still devotion in every moment. You're going for it, devotion in every moment.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, hon, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? Um, Definitely you're one of those that I'm like, okay, you have to connect with her because it's just the vibe. It's just what you give off. So where can people connect with you?
So my website is trueselfembodied.com. And I have an amazing newsletter. So, anyone listening, I really want to encourage you to go to my website and subscribe to my newsletter because this is high value. Like, I don't play. So this is my way of giving back ongoingly every single month. It's not just a write-up. Have a video transmission, a teaching transmission with every single release. So really what this is like being enrolled in an ongoing course for high consciousness. Those teachings have scaffolding, they build on each other. I'm going to walk with you and move through these collective tides. I'm going to meet you in places where you're rarely seen and validated and met. Like it's really, really juicy. So yeah, trueselfembody.com. I also offer one-on-one facilitation and I have a membership group. The membership group does have a gatekeeping process because this is about keeping those refined spaces where we really are a new paradigm community and not allowing distortions into the sacred and safe space that allows high level light beings a safe anchoring place, the architecture and energetics to really meet them and hold them inside of their evolutionary process.
Okay, beautiful. So as always, I'll put the links below. Ashtyn, thank you so much for being here, for joining us, from talking from your truths, from doing all that you're doing, and definitely for being a source and a friend and somebody that can actually help other people because we all get stuck. We just
Mhm.
get stuck at different levels. So thank you for everything.
Thank you. I've had such a wonderful time. I love connecting with you. Our first conversation off, recording, and now it just always feels so right and so good. So thank you so much for having me and facilitating this and just spending time with me in general.
You're welcome. And we're going to keep spending a lot more time. Just be ready.
Love
Thank
that.
you.
Yes,
Bye,
let's.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you for watching until the end. My question to you is, what is the one thing that you have learned from today's video that you can apply exactly today? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and go catch our next video.